Corso and Catone.
Listen, Mark, hold on. When I say, would you have caffeine today?
What the hell is that up to?
Presented by Special Sauce Podcast, Studio 42 Design, and Corso Law Group. Now for the real deal New England feel, Corso and Catone.
Welcome into Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. I'm Corso. Catone is here. Joe is in the booth, and you're with us watching on YouTube, listening on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you podcast. You can catch us. And, of course, call in our heated hotline, 855-313-PATS. Leave us a message 24/7. Joe's going to pick the one he wants. So let's make sure that one's yours, 855-313-7287. Mark, they got to have a take, right?
Of course they're going to have a tape. What else you going to call for?
You know, what do you call to say hi to Mark? Say, hi, Mark. How you doing? No.
Hello.
Have a take. Call the heated hotline. Make sure. Listen, we got a good one today. In Weekly Rewind, we're going to have a look at the playoffs coming up in those AFC, NFC championship games. We're going to have our Sunday spread in there and give you a lock of the week. Mark, you and I have been pretty damn good lately. So
listen to us last week. They were in good shape last week. I'll tell you that.
I listened to Mark and made me some money. So anyway, and of course, stick around. Catone's comments. You don't want to miss that today. And B's and C's, is there trouble in paradise with the Celtics? We're going to discuss that. But hey, before we do all of that, let's hear. Want to hear from somebody in the nation, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right, let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah, this is John from Providence. You know, great. Now we have Billy O'Brien. But that's not magic. What's next? They still have a ton to do. And it doesn't seem like they will. Has Belichick caved in or cracked? Or is this just something to shut us up? Thanks, guys.
Short, sweet, to the point. John from Providence.
Good
Thank
point.
you so much
Good
for that
point.
call. Okay, so to set it up, they as everyone knows, the Patriots hired Billy O'Brien as brought him back for the offensive coordinator position. So now he's in town. And Mark, is the caller right? I mean, is that just something that they're doing to say, you know, this thing's going off the rails, let's get him in here? Or is this really the right guy and Belichick really kind of has his tail between his legs here?
I think it's a combination of both. I think he's got NFL coaching experience. Belichick's not going to bring in a young nerd and deal with a young nerd. I'm going to tell you that right now. And I'm going to tell you something else. I don't think because of Mac Jones's personality, you saw how he reacted to those two fools last year. I don't know if you could bring in a young nerd to work with Mac Jones. I think he needs somebody that's experienced, that I think can put his foot up his ass, because I think that's what he needs. And he even said last year, I need to be coached harder. And O'Brien's that type of a guy. So I think, I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying he's going to bring the most innovative offense to New England, but you're going to definitely see, I think, an improved offense and at least a more prepared and better Mac Jones because of O'Brien. Chris.
Yeah, I mean, and so to me, I think this is the right hire. I mean, out of all the people they were looking at and some of the other things, I think you're right. If they were in a different situation, they had more of a veteran quarterback, something like that, then you can bring in that nerd and implement some different things and do that. But with this situation, yeah, I think this is the right guy for the job. He brings credibility. Right. I mean, he brings knowledge of different systems, knowledge of the quarterback, everything you said, and the ability. And well, that's the other thing too, Mark, I want to talk about is what kind of offense is he bringing? What are they going to show? What are we going to see?
I think you're going to see a combination of what was done when McDaniels was here and O'Brien, but when McDaniels was here, and I think you're going to see him infuse some of what they did at Alabama, because at Alabama, they did do some spreading out of the field, some different types of pass patterns that New England doesn't run, but Mac Jones is comfortable running, because the Alabama playbook hasn't changed much. So the last 3 Alabama offensive coordinators were Billy O'Brien, Steve Sarkisian, and Lane Kiffin. Sarkisian and Kiffin go to be head coaches of high-level Division I programs after leaving Saban. O'Brien wants to be an NFL coach. But that offensive scheme in Alabama hasn't changed much.
No.
O'Brien tweaked it a little bit, brought some pro-style stuff to it, but it was still a variation of the same offense. So I think he's going to bring some of that with him from Alabama as well, which Mac Jones is very comfortable with. And I think they'll bring back some of what McDaniels did, because when O'Brien was the quarterback's coach and OC, what he was doing was a variation of what McDaniels had did before McDaniels went to Denver.
Yeah, I mean, when you go to Alabama, the offense doesn't change, you change. I mean, that's it.
Yes,
Saban doesn't change his offense. I mean, so when O'Brien went in there, he had to do that. And listen, that's great because Mac Jones, they have a relationship. You know, when Mac Jones was on his way out before the draft, Bill O'Brien was coming in. And basically, Mac Jones taught O'Brien that Alabama offense. Well, taught him, but, you know, worked with him.
So that tells O'Brien Jones has a brain.
Yeah, so you're gonna see some of that RPO, that read option stuff. Mac Jones can handle that. You're gonna see the ability. I think this is what I think you're gonna see. You'll see them putting it in Mac Jones's hands to do what he does, which is read, think. You know, stick that ball into the running back's gut, read what's going on the defense, pull it back, either throw it from there or a true read option. Won't be a read option. He's not going to run the ball, but it'll be an RPO, where he's passing from that.
When he was at Alabama, the intent was they used his brain and made him make some decisions at the line of scrimmage. Okay. Yeah. And that didn't happen last year. And because the two offensive coordinators, the two coaches you had that were working on the offense simplified things so damn much because they couldn't understand the playbook, I don't think, and couldn't grasp it themselves. And the intricacies of what was there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think O'Brien will allow that to happen with him.
Do you feel like, and I want to ask you who you think personnel-wise, what some of the things we should do, but do you feel like O'Brien, look, and these are some of the numbers going from 2011 to 20, okay? In 2011, he had his best season as an offensive coordinator, which was second offensive rank in the league. From that point on, now he was with the Texans after that as the head coach, but he was still calling the plays. So from 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So 2014, 17th, 19th, 29th, 20th, 15th, 13th, 13th. That's where they ranked in the league offensively. Well, that's not so good. Why is it going to be better here?
Because I think
I take it by your silence.
That was a long.
No. Because I'm thinking
that's not
Chris,
the best vote of confidence.
No, it's not. But I'm trying to think, Chris, back to what I was trying to do. You mentioned all those years back. I'm trying to think of the Texans and who was their personnel guy, and what they had on the field, and he didn't have
they were
the best
dysfunctional
weapons.
at times too.
They were. We had Hopkins and he had Watson, but yeah, and many people, Chris, if you remember correctly, thought that they underachieved that team, and they thought
they
that
always
they should
had
have
a
been
quarterback
better.
problem.
Huh?
They always had a quarterback problem.
Well, not once they got Deshaun Watson, they didn't.
Well, but he wasn't there. Some of these years, I don't. Watson wasn't there.
No,
14,
he wasn't
15.
the quarterback. He wasn't.
This was when they had that Osweiler and a couple of those kind of guys, and then Watson came in. But when Watson came in, dysfunction started creeping in. Things started happening. They brought that guy down from New England, and it got real strange over there, didn't it?
It did. It did. And Hopkins and him, that relationship was extremely strained. So everybody keeps saying, "Oh, we're gonna get Hopkins. We're gonna get Hopkins." Well, Hopkins, I don't think could stand O'Brien. Hated O'Brien's guts when he went out the door. So there's gonna have to be a lot of fence mending if you're gonna do that.
Well, I don't know. Hopkins grew up a little bit, and I don't know. He couldn't stand O'Brien. How does he feel about Kingsbury? Right. How do you feel about Kingsbury and whatever else they got coming in?
Listen,
now?
I told Vanderbosch.
So tell me about the people. Yeah. Tell me who you tell me who you want to bring in. Who? First of all, wait. How much power is O'Brien going to get? Because that's going to tell us whether or not Belichick was just appeasing. This is an appeasing thing, or for the fans, or it's like, how much power does O'Brien have for personnel, and who the hell should they be bringing in?
Well, I don't think you'll know what he's got for power yet until they make some more hires. So they're going to bring, I'm assuming they'll bring in, I'm assuming O'Brien's going to be, I think when they announced it, he's quarterbacks coach, offensive coordinator. Okay. And that's what McDaniels was.
Right.
And they're going to allow O'Brien to bring in an assistant quarterback coach to learn a little bit and help that O'Brien knows. Are they going to let O'Brien bring in an O-line coach guy that he knows maybe? Or is Belichick still going to be hiring these guys and bringing in Belichick guys? And so I don't know if we can actually totally answer that until you see the next couple of personnel moves as on the coaching staff, not players, that they make.
Yeah. I think it's really telling that they were interviewing Clem again for their I believe their offensive line coach, and I'm not real. As I peeled back the onion on him, he had an opportunity to be the offensive line coach at Pittsburgh, and he didn't last the whole season. They said, well, it was a lateral move. He went to Oregon. Why would you go from the NFL to Oregon for the same job? A lateral move. Something was wrong. He got pushed out of Pittsburgh.
And Chris, in Pittsburgh, they let him go before the season ended. They said, it's an opportunity for him.
Right. And so to me, but what you saw this week was they brought in the Patriots brought in Ryan Wendell, former offensive lineman here in New England, to interview for the OC for the offensive line coach. To me, because that would have been under O'Brien too. To me, that's probably one of O'Brien's guys. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see about how much who they hire in that situation. But as far as player personnel, you and I had some interesting conversations this week about wide receivers. I mean, look, we both agree that O'Brien can do a lot with what they have now with their tight ends, using Jonnu Smith better than we feel that he was being used. Their running backs, obviously, they've got to upgrade the offensive line. We know that. Okay, we know tackle is a huge, huge need, whether it be in the draft or
and we're assuming he's going to draft one, right? That's what we're assuming.
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm assuming if that Alabama tackle is there, they're going to take him. But with wide receiver, Mark, you talked about Hopkins a little bit, and having to mend that fence. Names that have been thrown out there in trade. That's not my guy, though.
That's not who I
know.
Want.
But names that have been thrown out there are him, Allen from the Chargers, trying to trade for him because the free agent market for wide receivers is very good. But you had an interesting thought.
So I looked around the league, Chris, and listen. So Philadelphia is in the NFC Championship tomorrow. They went and got Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, his guy from Alabama. Yes, they brought in A.J. Brown and they got other guys. Yes, they do. But they went and got him, Devontae Smith. In Miami, they got Tua, Jalen Waddle. Don't get me wrong. Tyreek Hill is unbelievable. But they still went and got him Waddle. In New England, go get Mac, one of his Alabama guys. Go to Denver. I don't think it'll cost you a ton. It might cost you a little bit. He's in the last year of his rookie deal. Go get Jerry Jeudy and put him with O'Brien and Mac. And there's Mac.
That's something nobody has said.
Nobody has said it. I keep saying it.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. Chris, he will do things from that position that we don't have on this roster right now. We don't have it.
He can play in and out. He can get down the field. He's good across the middle. He's good on the crosser routes. He can kick a slant and go. He hasn't been given the opportunity in Denver, in my opinion. He's been given crap quarterbacks,
train wreck.
crap coordinators. And so, Mark, that's a great point. So pay attention, people out there, because Jeudy would be a good fit here. And money-wise, it's better than what you're going to have to pay Hopkins. And Hopkins is coming off Hopkins has got a problem with Billy O, and Hopkins is coming off that steroid problem. He looked like a dog against us. Is he going to be?
Chris, they supposedly shopped Jeudy during the trade deadline. They wanted way too much for him. But now that he's entering the last year of his contract, I think that price will come down because what are you going to do with him? He's never going to go back there. What are you going to? They're not going to spend money to franchise him. So what are you going to do with a guy like that? So rather than lose him altogether, I honestly think if you pick the phone up, they'd be willing to deal.
So both Mark and I both agree Billy O'Brien was the best hire for the situation we're in. So pay attention to the show. Keep tuning back in because there's a lot more coming as the weeks pass here. And Mark, as far as looking back to last season, quick, when I go back and I look at this whole Judge, I mean, it just keeps looking worse and worse and worse with the things that came out. And I gotta read a couple of these things. We gotta talk about a couple. So this week, the Herald put some stories out that talked about the dysfunction. And we all knew it was dysfunctional, right? Last season. But this is some of the things that are coming from inside the locker room. And let me just, these are quotes. Quote, I've never seen any, this is from a source inside, which, I love that. I've never seen anything like it, one source said. It was disheveled. Another source said they were always scrambling to get things done. To peel back the layers of dysfunction, the Herald interviewed several sources inside and around the organization who spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of retribution of the Patriots. So they don't want to come out and say who it is. But
no kidding.
They continue on to say, it's always been about winning and doing what's best for the team. I really believe Belichick when he says that, one source said. I just think he really didn't understand how hard it was going to be. Or in the words of another source, I love Coach Belichick, but he effed us. That's strong, Mark.
So, Chris, let me ask you this. Would Belichick take an offensive coordinator, former offensive coordinator, and say to the OC, former OC, go be the defensive coordinator, coach defense for me? Would he ever make that? No. Would he ever do
Fired.
that?
Anyone else gets fired. Anybody else in any team anywhere gets fired for doing some shit like that. I mean, that's horrible. I mean, that's just, and it was clear. It was clear all season long, and now you're starting to see it coming out. You got another one that talked about the staff lacked understanding. The staff's lack of understanding became a frequent source of frustration in meetings. Players with experience in Shanahan's system, Kendrick Bourne, okay,
the doghouse.
Right, would raise questions about how to solve defenses that they had faced with other teams. A lot of guys would ask, well, what's going to happen if the defense does this or that? And you'd see them looking around at each other and say, well, we'll get to that when we get to that. These are the things that were being said. And by the end, we were just making 1,000 adjustments instead of building them in at the beginning. The root of the problems fell under Patricia's domain. So everything we knew to be is now coming out, and you're hearing it, Mark. So who did this hurt? This whole situation that happened last season, who did it hurt the most?
Jones. So that's why when we kept saying all year long, Chris, is it Jones? Is it coaching? Is it Jones? We went back and forth, you and I, every week on this, right? One week it'd be, it's Jones. The next week we'd be like, but it's the coaching. And it looked like we were flip-flopping. But it really, you couldn't make that determination. But now, as you start to hear some of this, Chris, it was the freaking coaching.
Yeah.
That hurt him. Don't get me wrong. Should he have made better decisions? There were some times that, yes, he should have. However, his development was greatly hampered by these two buffoons.
See, I think it hurt. I think it hurt Judge and Patricia the most. I think what went on there hurt those two guys the most.
They were bums when they came here.
But you know what? They're worse now. It's worse. Any chance those two guys are not marketable. He put those two guys, he hung them out to dry, hung them out. And so to me, yes, from a player standpoint, it hurt Jones, yes. But he can rebound. These two guys, and Mark, they're bringing Joe Judge back. What the hell do you mean? That's why I wonder if all this crap with O'Brien was just to appease the fans. Because what are you doing? Mac Jones couldn't stand Judge. He's going to be back with the team in some sort of capacity. What? What are you kidding me?
Doesn't make any sense to me.
What?
I don't know.
Because he screwed them over so bad. He screwed them over so bad, putting them in spots they didn't belong, that now he feels like he's got to, you know what? So total dysfunction. So hopefully it gets better. And now we talk about, there was a story, and you mentioned this, talking about where the Patriots are now. How close is it? Are they closer to the Bills just by putting O'Brien in-house? And Greg Bedard talked about some of the top tiers and the tiers of teams in the league. And let me just real quick, because I want to know from you where you think this team is today now. So he talks about the elite teams, and this is just the AFC. Elite teams: Cincinnati, Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, with Lamar Jackson, he puts. Okay, so that's a caveat to that. Okay, that's the top tier. The next one down, he talks about Jacksonville, Miami with a good DC, and the LA Chargers, okay, with a good offensive coordinator.
What
And
about a coach in LA?
Right. So, and then he talks in the ballpark. You got Vegas only with Brady, Vegas. Pittsburgh, he puts Pittsburgh in there. Patriots with O'Brien. The Jets, Titans, Broncos, he puts with a real coach. And the Browns. These guys are in the ballpark. Mark, go through this. Where are the Patriots, first of all, in all this? And do you agree with this?
Well, first of all, Chris, I listen. I don't understand what everybody's obsession is with Lamar Jackson and Baltimore. Baltimore is so far from being a contender. They got no offense. They got no wide receivers. They got Lamar Jackson. All you're going to do is put in a defense to make him throw the ball. He can't beat you. He has shown it over and over.
Yeah, he has. He definitely has shown it. And you know what, Mark?
It's a joke.
Listen,
Lamar Jackson.
It's a joke. I would say Miami is close with Tua. Miami is closer to being to that spot than certainly Baltimore is, because Miami goes and beats Buffalo. I don't care what anybody says. Miami beats Buffalo in that wild card game if Tua plays, and that would probably start to knock Buffalo down into that second tier. Believe it or not, I think Buffalo is getting closer to going down than up. They're going the other way, in my opinion. So we'll see. But we talk about, and we want to get to Weekly Rewind, but and this is kind of like that too, talking about where these guys are going to end up. There's a possibility. There's a possibility that if the Jets trade for Rodgers, Miami signed Brady, you're going to have Miami. I mean, you're going to have Brady, Rodgers, and Allen in the same division, Mark.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest with you, Chris. So the one thing nobody seems to talk about with Buffalo too, Chris, is the coach. I don't think we've always questioned him. And the way it looks, the last couple of years, not this year, but the previous couple of years when they made that push and everybody said, okay, they're the next team now. They're going to take New England's spot in the AFC. Well, I think that was more of the OC that went to the Giants.
Yep.
Than it necessarily was the head coach or even Allen. I think Daboll got more out of Allen than I think anybody thought could. Now all of a sudden Allen's reverting back to the things he used to do, the picks, the bad decisions in a key situation.
In the red zone.
Running out of the pocket when he probably should sit in the pocket and make a throw. He's running and picking up yardage, but he's missing that play. It's not there because, so I don't know about that. I don't know.
And there's dysfunction now. There's some dysfunction now in Buffalo with Diggs. Pissed off Diggs is. He left the locker room.
I'm going to tell you something, Chris. The category they put New England in, Badad.
Yeah.
Okay, Pittsburgh. You put them on the same level as Pittsburgh.
We're better than Pittsburgh. I don't care what anyone says. I don't. New England's better than
the quarterback was a rookie. I don't necessarily know how good he is. I mean, coming out of the draft, I thought he with time he could develop, but I don't know if he's ready yet. I mean, the Denver Broncos, Denver.
So that whole tier is, and I think the Titans are going the other way too.
Denver has a great defense. Don't get me wrong, but offensively, I think Wilson is done.
I'll give you the Browns a little bit.
Well, Watson.
I'll give you the Browns as possible because of Watson, right? I mean,
Amari Cooper. They got some offensive guys too. They got some weapons.
Defensive, and they got Garrett and those guys on defense. Yep. So. Yeah. We'll see. Stay tuned to all of this because we're going to be talking a lot more in the coming weeks about the Patriots, Bill O'Brien, some of the moves they're making. They're coaching in the East-West Shrine game next Thursday. So stick around for that. But listen, it's time to go back now, Mark, because they played the division games last week. We want to talk about those, and we want to talk about the championship games coming up in Weekly Rewind. Joe, let's have it. I'm getting it. Going back through the week. About a weekly rewind.
Hey, Chris, I want to interrupt you before you guys get into the rewind. I have a special rewind for the super fans and you guys. I don't know if you remember this, but you should. Here we go.
What the hell is he going?
The New England Patriots are staying right here in Massachusetts.
The gentleman I'm about to introduce stepped up at a critical time. He understands what a football team means to this community, who, after league approval, will become the next owner of the New England Patriots, Robert Kraft.
Some people think it's pretty silly to spend so much money just for a game. But for those of you who aren't fans, let me tell you that this game holds the attention of this community and communities throughout this country from August to January in a way that's hard to explain if you're not into it. And it really impacts the psyche and the fabric of the community. And this is my hometown, and I just believe this hometown wouldn't have been the same if this team had left here. I thought back to when I was a young man collecting for the Jimmy Fund in front of Braves Field. It was either the Warren Swan Diner or Hayes Bickford. I don't remember at the time. And then shortly after that, the Braves left here, and a part of me died at that time. I like John Harrington. He wasn't involved, and I like the Red Sox, but the Braves were my team, and to this day I regret that they left here. And I realized that this was a unique opportunity that I had, and it really required me to stretch beyond where I ever dreamt I would have to try to secure this asset. But it allowed me to fulfill a dream, and in a way I hope serve part of the best interests of the community. The real equities holders of this team, I hope, will be the fans and the corporate community. We're going to need your support, and I hope we earn it. My objective in doing this is to help bring a championship to New England. We didn't do this to be a doormat for any of the teams. We do like to win. We think everything is in place. We don't like to usually pay time.
Just a little tidbit of the last week.
Yeah, so on January 21st, it was 94.
94.
Right,
Yep.
94, and he certainly did bring that the championships like he I'm getting I get a little emotional about this because Mark, I'll defer to you for a minute, on that.
Yeah, he did bring the championships here, and he remembers. I mean, we didn't see the whole clip, and he remembers sitting in the benches at the old stadium, right? He remembers that. He remembered when the first game played there on a Monday night. It was a preseason game. The Giants, people were walking up Route 1 to go to the game, right? So he remembers those days, and they were terrible. Oh, were they terrible, right?
What that mean to you?
That was listen, that was just special, that he made a promise. He fulfilled the promise. You and I agonized for years. We loved the Patriots, no matter how bad they were. We just kept following them, and every Sunday, and what was special too is it's brought me a lot of great memories of the Super Bowls. But my son grew up during this whole 20 years, right? So he was born in 2002, and obviously that was Brady's, that was the heyday of the dynasty starting. So as he got older, he doesn't know anything else but Patriots winning and championships, right. and which a lot of your sons, same thing, Chris. We're a different generation. So to us, this really means something because we know what it was like before. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, I only got a minute here, but for me, it when I see that, and I saw that last week too, Joe, and I got pretty emotional, and I do every single time I think about it because we, they almost were and moved to St. Louis. I mean, it was going to happen, if Kraft didn't come in, and I remember my father and I, really, with the Patriots together. We, that, Mark, we, he and I enjoyed it together. He took me to my first game and the foam finger he got, all that. So I've talked about this on the show before. And so we were both so happy that, that the team was going to stay. And then, a little later on that year, right at the beginning, I lost my father. And it's just, the Patriots became more to me than just a fan of a football game. You know, they were something that I clung to at dark times in our lives. And I know, Mark, you have some similar things like that too. And so Kraft doing that, we give Kraft a lot of crap. We always do. But to me, that guy and his family really helped me on a personal level. And a lot of you out there can share similar stories, I'm sure. Make sure you give us a call and need a hotline. We'd love to put them on. But Joe, thank you so much for playing that. We both appreciate that. So
it was a little long, but I cut it short right at the moment where his wife talked about the long-term commitment. And, you know, but you could check that out on Instagram somewhere.
Yeah. So thanks, Joe. Mark and I were not expecting that. So
No.
we appreciate that. But listen, getting into the rest of the what happened this past week in the divisional games, Mark, anything surprise you in those games?
No. I think you and we thought San Fran would win, and we thought, since you loved Cincinnati, I loved San Fran, and we both thought Philly would do what they, I don't know if we necessarily thought they would win as easy as they did, but we liked Philly. And listen, what did surprise me, Chris, was, and I know Mahomes got hurt, but Jacksonville put up a hell of a fight.
They really did, and I don't know if that was more.
And I don't think Jacksonville's that good. Don't get me wrong.
No, and that's why. And I was about to say, I don't think that's more. I think that's more of an indictment on Kansas City, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, the ankle had something to do with it. I mean, Mahomes getting hurting his ankle, and he couldn't make those throws, which is why moving forward, we'll see what happens this week. But no, I wasn't too surprised over anything that happened. I was a little surprised that San Fran didn't really, wipe the field with the Cowboys. I thought they would have a much better showing, and it looked to me like that rookie came back to reality just a little bit.
Yeah, and you said that, Chris. You said to me the only thing that scared you about that San Fran game was if Purdy came back to reality and Dallas's defense could stymie him a little bit, how would he react? And unfortunately for Dak Prescott is just he'll never win a championship.
Oh, and McCarthy made so many bad coaching issues in that game, so many mistakes in that game, and he just continues to do that. And for some reason, Jerry Jones throwing back out. But the Cincinnati Buffalo game, nothing in that game surprised me. Cincinnati, that was the tomato. You talking about tomato can games where you kick the can in the division round? We used to do it with Jacksonville and Tennessee and some of these teams that were coming, you just wipe their ass for them. Everybody thought, well, is this Buffalo's tomato? No, this was Cincinnati's tomato can game. They kicked both Buffalo around in that game. They kicked them around, and they could have scored another 2 touchdowns if they chose. Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. And I think the ease in which they did it, Chris, shocked a lot of people. But I don't think it didn't shock you, because you've been saying, or me, but you've been saying for weeks that you just don't think Buffalo was that good. And I think they proved it. They didn't put up much of a fight or resistance. And I'm going to tell you something. If that game was in Cincinnati, it would have really been ugly. Because the Monday night game that Hamlin, thank God he's doing much better, got hurt.
Yeah.
You and I both said Buffalo was going to get their doors blown off that night, because Cincinnati was going down the field to go up 14-3 when he got hurt. That game was going to be a blowout.
I agree. So now looking at this week, looking at tomorrow's games, you got Cincinnati at Kansas City, San Fran at Philly is the first game. Let's take the first game. Let's take San Fran, Philly real quick.
Yep.
How do you see this going? Because I see Philadelphia. It's a 2.5-point spread. And so what do you see happening in this game? And you know what, Joe? Let's go with the Sunday spread right now. We'll give the people our locks right now. We'll break these games down a little bit. So Mark, talk about that. That's a 2.5-point. Philly's favored by 2.5. What do you think?
I just don't know. Listen, you know how the Philly fans are. That place is going to be absolutely bananas tomorrow. Bananas. And I don't think Purdy has ever played. We know he hasn't played in an environment like he's going to walk into on Sunday. And I don't get me wrong. I think this game is going to be closer than people think. Like, people think Philly's going to blow them out. I don't think they're going to get blown out, because I think San Fran has the best defense in the NFL right now, the way they're playing. However, I just think Philadelphia's at home. They got too many weapons and too many things that you have to try and stop. I do like Philadelphia to win this game, and I think they'll cover the 2.5, but I think it's going to be closer than people think. Wouldn't surprise me if it's a touchdown game.
Well, because because
they're gonna cover. I picked Philly to cover, absolutely. But everyone thinks it's gonna be a repeat of the Giant game. It's not going to be, I don't believe. I honestly think that San Fran's defense is too good to allow that.
The key to it is going to be, can San Fran disrupt things with 4? Because with those receivers you got in Philly, you can't. I don't know that San Fran is capable of playing man-to-man against them and turning their backs on Hurts and just and bringing pressure. I just don't see it being able to happen. So we'll see. I agree with you on that. And then the other one, the one that we're New England fans, everybody's most interested in this.
Do you even got to pick it? We know who you are.
I agreed with you on Philly. There won't be a blowout. I'm telling you now, Cincinnati is going to blow their doors off. And particularly one of the reasons is because I don't think you people out there understand what a high ankle sprain, what Mahomes is dealing with right now. He may look all right, but all that rolling out, running around, throwing across his body, that's going to be a problem for him. And I just don't think their defense, Kansas City, I don't think their secondary is even close enough to be able to handle what's coming at them.
So
maybe a little better than Buffalo, but not much.
I was just going to ask you about their secondary. What do you see in Kansas City secondary?
Not
you're a DB coach.
Not much. There are guys. They don't have a corner. They don't have a defensive back on that field that's going to stay with Chase one-on-one. They don't have it. So they're going to have to bracket coverage to him all day. And I don't think their safeties are always slow getting over the top in Kansas City. They always are every year and all of this season. You see it.
What coverage do you think they'll employ, Chris, in this game?
They'll probably try. Now, see, this is funny because Spagnuolo, the DC over in Kansas City, loves to bring pressure. He loves to bring pressure, and you can't do that against Burrow. Now, Cincinnati's got 2 offensive linemen that are out, but the tight end's going to play. I think Spagnuolo's going to go away from his normal take it at you blitz and run that deep cover too, just to be safe, just to make sure they don't kill you with deep plays. And I think the tight end is going to expose that cover 2 deep zone, Mark. You?
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree, Chris. Listen, I said, I think it might have been like week 11 or 10, probably 10. I said to Chris, you realize who the best team in the AFC is. Everyone was still talking about Buffalo at the time, Kansas City, this team, that team. I said, it's Cincinnati. And it took Chris a little time to come around, It did. But I think Cincinnati's been the best team in the AFC. I said it. I love the quarterback. Chris and I had a conversation this week about Mahomes and Allen and Burrow. Nobody is Tom Brady. We talked about, the fact that people were saying Buffalo's the next New England Patriots. They ain't won shit. So I don't know how you compare that to the New England Patriots. They ain't won shit. Okay? But we're not going to get into that. But who's the closest to Brady? Nobody's Brady. But who among those 3? And Chris and I agreed. His mindset, his attitude, his persona. Yeah. Burrow is the closest to Brady than Allen and Mahomes and him. And I just think he's going to find a way to win tomorrow. Joe, and they call him Joe Cool. He's Joe Cool. He's going to find a way to win an Arrowhead.
Whoa, take it easy.
It's only one Joe Cool, right? Listen, the only 2, if you gave me the choice to take 2 players right now, just take 2 players, any 2 players in the league, the 2 guys I would take on my team are Burrow and Chase. Absolutely. End of story. Hands down, I agree with Mark. So stay tuned. See if and I don't know if you can realize it, but my lock of the week is Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's my lock of the week is my lock of the week is Cincinnati as well. I do like Philly, but I'm going to go with Cincinnati. I don't know how they're getting points.
Put it together in a parlay with Philly, and you should be okay. So, hey, Weekly Rewind was presented by Special Sauce Podcast. What's your special sauce? SpecialSaucePodcast.com. Hey, when we come back, buckle up. Catone's Comments is next.
It's the Special Sauce Podcast. You liking the song? The sauce is good, man. Some startup, finance, trainer, custom, and let them read. With your host, Marcus Arias. Tune in to Special Sauce Podcast, wherever you podcast. What's your special sauce? Time for Catone's Comments!
So I'm glad that was our heated hotline call today, because I obviously Joe surprises us. We don't know what heated hotline is from week to week, but he basically said, the heated hotline caller basically said, okay, you brought in Bill O'Brien. Big deal. Now what? Like, is Belichick playing games with us? Yeah, he is playing games with us, because I've had it. I have had it with Bill Belichick. And it was great that Joe showed us that video of the Kraft family. And I'll never forget what they did for New England by keeping that team here. But listen, Bob, I'm going to give you a little advice, because you're getting a little old and a little forgetful maybe. I'm going to give you a little advice. Do you realize how bad and dysfunctional this team was? The fact that Belichick still has a job amazes me when you read what came out this week. Chris got into it a little bit. He didn't get into it enough. Do you understand, in practice, they dummied down the playbook? What McDaniels used to do in practice, the number of plays he would run, the number of reads he would run every practice was cut dramatically. A third.
Half.
It was basically a third of the playbook during practice from what they used to do was being run. And why was that? Because your coaching staff was idiots. They were a bunch of boobs. They couldn't understand the playbook themselves. Judge and Patricia couldn't understand the playbook, so they dummied it down. They claimed they dummied it down so they could speed up the play. That's what they said. We're going to speed up what we do so it'll be less confusing for the players. They don't have to make as many decisions. That's bullshit. You didn't understand the playbook. And Belichick allowed that to happen on his watch. This is in August. He allowed it. That's bullshit that was allowed all year long. Then Chris mentioned the East-West Shrine game next week. You want to talk about ridiculous. You've got not only Joe Judge as part of that staff, you have the special teams coach, Cam McCord, is on that staff.
Yeah, that's...
How does he have a job? How is my question? He does. And guess what? He's going to be part of the staff. Are we sick? We're listening to this bullshit that Belichick is feeding us? Chris believes it. He's a diehard. He believes the bullshit. Kraft, he yes, Mr. Kraft to death. He told me, yep, we're going to make the changes, Bob. Yep, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Yet he's keeping these buffoons on the staff. It's a joke. I'm disgusted, and I stand by my prediction. Belichick is gone at the end of the year, and Jones will be out the door too, and you're going to start fresh and over. And that should have happened when Brady left. Actually, Brady should be here, and Belichick should have been thrown out 3 years ago. And that's my final word.
So how did I become the victim here? How did I become the target? You know, Chris believed this and he believed that. And
you believed it. You love him. You put him up on his pedestal. His days are gone. They're gone.
So I guess the touchy-feely for the Kraft is it's pretty much over at this point. Hey, Bob, that's what you wanted. You wanted to set an expectation of greatness and what we should expect as fans. Well, here it is, and this is why we are the real deal, New England Field. There it is, Mark. I agree with you. And not only that,
Chris, how was Cam McCord continuing to be on this staff?
Yeah, that to me was a telling thing. That dude should have been fired before the Buffalo game was over. You know what I mean? I mean there was so much. There was no more dysfunction. The offense was the worst. Special teams was right behind there as far as dysfunction goes. Mark, I'll
Chris,
add
can
one
you
point.
imagine as a player that they dummy down the playbook and they use the reason for dumbing it down? But Chris, they used the reason for doing that as they wanted players to have to make less reads and speed up the play. Do they think that professional players are going to believe that?
Yeah, that's why they were talking about in meeting rooms when guys would ask them questions and they would say, look at each other like morons and say, oh, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. God, look, Kendrick Bourne, there was no other player in this locker room more familiar with what they were trying to do in the Shanahan system than Kendrick Bourne. He played for Shanahan and played well.
They were full of shit. He knew they were full of shit.
Oh, he knew it. He knew it. Mark, you're right. You're 1,000% right. And this is why we're going to see how this all shakes out. So good stuff, Mark. Catone's Comments was presented by Corso Law Group, Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm, CorsoLawGroup.com. Allow us to be your voice. Hey, when we come back, we're going to get into B's and C's, Bruins, Celtics, right after this.
It's that time again for a timeout for a message from one of our sponsors. No one ever thinks they will be in the need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. Corso Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Their 20-plus years experience and attention to detail has helped thousands of people all across this great country who found themselves in a situation in Arizona. So whether it's a traffic ticket or if you need reduced DUI or more serious issues, call or go online to CorsoLawGroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys who I know will help you. Corso Law Group.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. And listen, they're still playing well, but there may be a little chink in the armor. Let's go B's and C's, Joe. Gotta love that, Joe. Hello, mellow, nice little,
Yeah.
nice little intro. So, Mark, let's talk Celtics a little bit, okay? Their 3-game losing streak, they're going to be playing, when this thing airs, it's Saturday now, they'll be playing as we're on. So, coming off 3-game losing streak now, all right? Is there a chink in the armor? I mean, and I really want to focus on that Heat game, because there were a lot of things that happened in that Heat game the other night, earlier in the week, that they lost down to that last possession that we should be talking about. But is there a little bit of a chink in the armor here?
It may be a little bit of a chink, Chris, but I think, listen, what people are forgetting is they're banged up. They had 3-4 guys out in that Miami game. Was the decision-making at the end bad, and we're going to get to it? Yeah, it was. However, you got to realize that that game, they had 3-4 guys out in that game, and they still almost pulled it out at the end with all the guys that didn't play. And the thing that people got to realize is they keep putting Tatum on this pedestal. Tatum is not going to lead this team to a championship because he's so much better than everybody else that they're just going to get on his back and he's going to lead them. He needs the support of this team, the rest of the team. And I'm going to call particularly Jaylen Brown. Brown's going to be healthy and he's going to play. Everybody, there was a couple of references this week about Tatum. And I'm like, listen, Tatum's Batman, but if Tatum's Batman, Jaylen Brown can't be Robin. Jaylen Brown's going to be Superman. Like, they're two superheroes that have to work together to take this team to a championship. And if people don't remember what happened in that Golden State series last year, Jaylen Brown, the last 2 games, was the best player on the court for Boston, not Tatum.
In the finals. Yeah, in the finals. And I think you could say the same thing about Jaylen Brown. When he's on the court against the Knicks, when he was on the court by himself, with and I say between he and Tatum, he didn't look so hot either. A lot of turnovers.
No.
But Mark, they're starting to fall. Now, I get it. It's January. It's January.
But they need each other. My point is they need each other, Chris, those two guys.
They do need each other, because what you started to see, what I'm a little concerned about, is you started to see they revert back to some of the problems they had last year. Turnovers late in the game, okay? Some coaching issues, some play calling. Look, I look at that Heat game, and the one thing I want to ask you about is Mazzulla, because you can't have it both ways, people, right? So if you don't think coaching has anything to do with success in the NBA, and there's a lot of people out there that feel like the coach doesn't really make a difference. I think you mentioned something like that last week. So, okay, then it won't matter anything that happened here. But if you feel like coaching does make a difference, and I think it made a big difference in the finals last year, Udoka versus Kerr, and Kerr took, ate his lunch for him. And so that Miami game, that last sequence, almost every single time you call a timeout. So they missed the shot or they hit a shot, did the Heat to go ahead. And I think they were up by 2 at that point. There's about 20 seconds left, something like that. Every other coach calls that timeout there, advances the ball up the court, the half court, and they put a play together. They didn't do that. They inbounded the ball, kept the timeout in their pocket, and Tatum walked the ball up, right? And so to me, you call the timeout every time. You don't ask the players. You don't let the players make that decision on the court. You got to do that as that's your job, because when you're down, you're saving seconds. That's all you want to do is save seconds, right? You want to make sure you have as many seconds, because if you miss, you can stop playing that foul game, right? Foul them, try to get on the line, and just save time. And Mazzulla didn't do that. Did it get over his head? Is it being exposed at this point? Who do you put that on?
I think he's a work in progress, Chris. He's a first-time head coach, right? So is he over his head? I think that might be a little too harsh, right? But he's definitely, Chris, a work in progress, right? He doesn't have experience in those situations. He's never been a head coach, right? So I think if you get yourself into a critical series against an experienced coach, Spoelstra is an experienced coach, a guy like Kerr.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll hurt the Celtics a little bit, the fact that he's so inexperienced. And up until this point, Chris, I think he's relied on the fact that the players have been playing at such a high level. His coaching hasn't played into any of it, right? But as soon as we saw Friday against Miami, coaching did have to play into the game.
Yeah.
It didn't work out so well, did it? So to your point, Chris, is he being exposed? And may that be a problem as we go forward? Yes, it's January, but when you get into April, May, and June, it could be a problem.
Yeah. And Mark, listen, hey, everybody out there, Mark's fighting. He's been sick all week. So to even be here right now, Mark, I tip my hat to you right now, because Mark.
But Chris, I will say this, and then I'll let you talk. I will say this. Yeah. You mentioned coaching.
Yeah.
There's only 4 or 5 guys in this league that I respect as a coach. One of them is Kerr, obviously. I respect the guy from Miami. I think he's a good coach, right?
Oh, he is.
There's 4 or 5 of those guys. So unless you catch one of those guys in the playoffs, it may not hurt you as much, because I think 3/4 of these coaches, you look around the league, Chris, they stink.
Yeah.
The
one thing I will say, and look, Tatum's not, you got to look at Tatum in that situation, because, okay, fine, the coach doesn't call the timeout, now he puts it in his hands. You're walking the ball up. He's walking the ball up to try to play for the last shot. We're either going to win it here, or we're going to tie it here, or we're going home. That's crap. And I'm not sure what Tatum's thought process was. You're going to get doubled. It's going to be a high double at the top, okay? As soon as he hit half court, the double came. And Robert Williams didn't really know what to do there. He looked like he was going to try to set a pick. So when Mazzulla at the end of the game says, no, I have no problem. I didn't want Spoelstra to set his defense coming out of the timeout. I wanted to go. I should have called a better play. It didn't look like there was any play called there, because nobody else on the court seemed to know what the hell was going on.
No. Sometimes you call a number out or something from the bench that indicates there's a play on. However, You're right, Chris. It didn't look like what the hell they were doing.
So I put it on Tatum too there. Absolutely put it on Tatum. But one of the things that when you look deeper in, you look coaching, pay attention to this stuff, because in that game, okay, it was more than just a timeout. You got situations where Hero, for the Heat, was like 3 of 16. Now, usually he's a sniper out there. He was like 3 of 16. And you got situations where you're doubling him at the top of the key, and Pritchard is ending up on Bam, which is absurd, because Bam went off on them. And that's one of the reasons. That's coaching. How do you allow that to continue to happen all game long? So there are things like that went on, the timeout, so on. So they're just going to have to get better in that way, and the players are going to have to be a lot smarter on the court to point these things out in the huddle. But yeah, they do miss Marcus Smart. They miss some of these guys, especially Marcus Smart, in these last 3 games. It was evident. So, we'll see what happens. It is January, so let's just see. They got to get back right again, and let's hope they do that. Let's say they do that tonight. And then switching over to the Bruins, man, they just keep that team tops in the league. They just keep coming and coming and coming. I mean, just keep finding ways to win in the third period. So they're on track to break the regular season record, which the Montreal Canadiens hold. And I think it's like 100 and I don't remember. It's a ridiculous amount of points, I believe. Points, and then the record to win games. So first of all, is there anybody who actually cares about that? Like, should anybody care about it? Who does? Is it something that's worth going for, Mark?
No, because I'm going to tell you why, Chris. Everybody is all, the Bruins, they keep flying. Blah, blah, blah. They lost the other night, if anyone doesn't realize, to Tampa, 3-2. And Tampa's a veteran team that grinds, they bang, they slow you down, they drag you into corners. Tampa Bay's not the same team that won a Stanley Cup, but they play a style that may give you trouble in a 7-game series because they're going to make you play 3-2, 2-1 games maybe, right? So let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Not get ahead of ourselves. I don't give a shit about the points. I don't care about that. Getting that doesn't. I'm worried about teams like Tampa. Can you prepare yourself to win a grind for 7 games or 6 games against a team that's going to play that type of hockey against you? Who gives a shit about the record? I don't give a shit about that record. In my personal opinion.
Do you think there's anybody that does care, like the fans, anybody like that, simply because it's Montreal that's holding that record?
Maybe. I'm sure there are. Yeah. Some of those, I'm sure that fans would love to see the Bruins hold the record and knock Montreal out. Absolutely. But
probably the old timers.
This roster, the way it's constructed, Chris, this is probably the end of the window with these guys, Bergeron and all these guys. So this is your chance to win this thing. This is the team. You got to win it. The way they've been playing, Chris, if they can stay healthy, you got to win it.
Well, that's the key.
Because if you don't, your window's closed.
That's the key, Mark. When you talk about the health, to me, that's why you don't go for this. Because you got to start giving Bergeron some time. You got to start giving Marchand, Lindholm. You got to start giving McAvoy, who's been injury prone for the last few years. You got to start resting these guys. And I think in net, you got a nice little combination there. Ullmark's the best goalie in hockey, but Swayman comes in, and Swayman's damn good too. So to me, the record doesn't mean much. I get it. It's Montreal. I can't stand Montreal. Can't stand Montreal. I can't stand the fans. I can't stand the region. I can't stand any of it. Cut it off. Let it float away. Get rid of Montreal. Who cares? But
That's a little harsh.
Cooler heads should probably. If I'm a Bruins fan, you're a Bruins fan. You hate Montreal. That's it. That's the bottom line. So, but I think cooler heads have to. That's why you and I aren't making these decisions. Because so cooler heads have to prevail. But we'll see. It's January for them too. It's January for them, and they still need, by the March trade deadline, they still need to go get that guy in Vancouver. They need to get that defenseman. To get in there. But Tampa's a problem. We talked about that, Mark, last week. We talked about the fact that the Bruins may not be the most talented team, but they're the best team. And when you play teams like Tampa, Carolina, Avalanche, who I think are the best talent, most talent, they got speed. They can hurt you. So you better get these guys some rest. Mark, hey, thank you, Mark, for showing up and pushing through and fighting through that cold and that sickness. I'm telling you, people, if you heard Mark 2 days ago, he couldn't even talk. You could barely hear him. He was barely audible, which, maybe that's good for Catone.
That may not have been a bad thing, right?
I don't know, but nice job, Mark. Joe, as always. Corso and Catone was presented by Special Sauce Podcast. What's your special sauce? SpecialSaucePodcast.com. And listen, get on all week long. Watch our shows. Listen to our shows on iHeart. They're up for you to do. And, hey, make sure you subscribe, follow us, give us that thumbs up. And come back next week, 7 p.m. Eastern, for Corso and Catone, where we will recap the NFL championship games. Look ahead at the Super Bowl. We're going to have more Bruins and Celtics. And, of course, Catone's comments. He'll be in full voice by then. And your heated hotline calls. Make sure you give us a call, 855-313-PATS. Want to know everything. Everything's on the table. Want to make sure you get on the show as well. Anything you bring, we'll be ready for it. We are Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. See you next Saturday.
Right, Corso and Catone on iHeartRadio, iTunes, or wherever
Fairview Podcast. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, Corso and Catone, and catch the chaos at 7 p.m. on Saturday.